welcome to the Shema podcast series, Strive for Truth. This series is based on the teachings of Rabbi Eliyahu Dessler, one of the most profound Torah thinkers of the early 20th century. In these conversations, I'm joined by Rabbi Michael Cohen, a longtime student and teacher of his work. This is not a series about inspiration or quick takeaways. It's about clarity, learning to see reality honestly and aligning our lives with what is real. Welcome back to the Shema podcast, my friends, and another episode in the series, Strive for Truth with Rabbi Michael Cohen. Rabbi Cohen, great to be sitting back in the studio with you again, getting into one of the most pivotal chapters on loving kindness, the idea of giving and taking. You know, we were just talking, the Rabbi and I, offline, how, because I've not finished reading the book, I'm maybe 3 or 4 chapters ahead, trying to be able to read them twice before I sit here with the Rabbi and discuss. And I asked the question, do these chapters continue throughout the 2 volumes here, building on one another and getting more and more deep into this idea of what it means to have a purposeful life, a life of meaning. All ways of describing a good life, which is, as the book describes, means finding truth. And he said, yes, these are all building blocks, which is amazing because each essay seems to get more and more deeper and striking at the core of life. But let's get into this, Rabbi, and this idea of giving and taking. You know, Rav Dessler sort of begins by, like he's done in the past in previous essays, laying out and mapping out what happens when you approach life from a standpoint of simply just taking, which is not only the norm of the world that we are surrounded by, but it can even happen to a good from Jew living a Torah observant lifestyle, can still even pursue things for the wrong reasons. So discuss that with us and paint the picture fully from the one side, and then we'll get more clarity on the other side of a life focused on giving.
Right, sure. So this essay lecture was written by Rabbi Dessler. It started from when he was a very young man, while he was still learning in Cohen. And he developed this concept. It's really a way of living when one relates to oneself and the world around you in a very binary way. He justifies what he's saying because the Chovis Halavavos, the duties of the heart, also does the same thing on a different level, maybe even more basic level. When one looks in the world in a binary way, that is, everything I do, everything a person does is either giving or taking. That is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God created the world, and He created, and we know God has nothing to do, gets nothing from the world. God is the ultimate giver. He created the world through giving. It's just an act of giving. God is giving all the time. He's giving to us all the time. Everything that we have is a gift from God. And so He created man, humankind, with the ability to give and to take. And the sublime ability to give is godliness. And when one touches on that, one is touching on godliness. So if you consider and you think about this, it takes a little bit of time. It's worth spending a little bit of time on this. But what he says is at different levels. So we know, of course, somebody comes to the door and asks for a meal, asks for a favor. So I think we all understand that's an act of giving, right? So there's certain actions we do which are giving. But even at a metacognition, at a meta level of metacognition, there are things that we do, even if we think, even in our minds, we're actually taking or giving. I like to give this simple example. If you go to CVS to buy milk, so when you walk into the store, there are any supermarket, milk's right at the back, and they put that at the back because they want you to walk through the aisles. And the idea is, you walk in the supermarket, you'll walk through the aisles, and you come to the back, you'll come to the milk. So they want you to walk through the aisles and see other things that you need to buy. So, okay, fine. So when you go to the supermarket and you have a choice of an aisle to go through, you could go through the first aisle that comes your way. You walk through the entrance, now go through the first aisle, get to the back, get the milk, come back to checkout and go. But most people don't do that. Most people, when they get into the store, and this is from experience, the stores know this, you come into the store and say, well, what else do I need? And you start thinking, now, a person will think, oh well, maybe I have a dog. I'll walk through the pet aisle because maybe I'm going to get something for my pet. Or a person thinks goes through the thing. Oh, my wife loves candies or chocolate, or I know she loves this type of rice, and we haven't been getting it for a while. And so, what's going through one's mind when one's doing this simple act of walking to the back of the store? Are you thinking about what you can give, or are you thinking about what you can take? That's a very, and it's the same thing. You pick up a newspaper, right? You pick up a newspaper. Or nowadays, you go online. What are you searching for? What are you looking at? What occupies your mind? Is what occupies your mind something which is directly to you, or is it something about which is directed to your family, your kids, your neighbor, your friends, people you don't know, other people? Where's your mind? Where is your brain? So that's at the beginning of this treatise. Rabbi Dessler says we got to think about every single thing, and if you boil it down, it's not just when you go in the supermarket, when you go to pick up a newspaper or go online. It's actually on every single thing that you do throughout the day. You're either one or the other. It's either an act of giving or taking. So where are we? Where exactly are we in this thing?
Exactly. You're getting to the very heart. Rob Dessler is on really everything, because on this podcast a lot we've discussed things about being in the image of God and Devekas, cleaving to Hashem, and it's all about this spiritual alignment. We were built with the potential to be in the image of God, which is what he's getting at, which means to go from a state of taking to a state of giving, because Hashem's in a constant state of giving. Now, I've discussed some of the essays by the Baal Shem Olam. It talks about this, but this gets really deep into this. I will share, I did an episode, like my first season, where I was talking about from a book I'd read on marriage. And I was talking about how I got into it because my wife wanted me to go back to writing these nice letters to her, like when we first got married. But at the time I was like, well, that was when I didn't have any money to buy you gifts. And now I just, you have a credit card and you can go, it's easier. She's like, no, I really like the letters she used to write. And she goes, just write the things you like about me, you love about me. And so I wrote a list of the things I loved about my wife. And after studying it, I realized that everything I wrote was something that she did for me. It was all about things that she did for me and all the reasons I love myself. It wasn't about, she clearly knows how to love through actions, but that's sort of what he's getting at, is we don't tend to think about love and giving. It's all about what we're doing for the other.
Yeah, so it's all about what we're doing for the other, right? And how we relate to people. Are we relating to people as an opportunity to give, or are we looking at somebody as what can I get from that person? Right,
exactly. And this is basically this is the battleground of the Yetzer Hara. This is what the Yetzer Hara introduced into mankind, is this very idea, right?
So he says that they can be. You look at the world, you look at things you do. So you might say, well, then we can't. Not everybody can give, right? Because you can't always be giving, because you've got to sometimes take in, or the other person should be giving. Like if everyone's giving, then no one's taking. So then how does the world exist, right? It can't be that everybody's giving. So he explains, and very gently, and that of course the act of receiving, there's a difference between receiving and taking, right? So taking is when you're interested in yourself, what you can get. Receiving is when you're taking something from the other person, you're relating to the other person. So it really gets to the core of what relationships are. What we say in English, it's a give and take relationship. That's not the ideal. We're talking about a give and give relationship.
Right, because receiving is giving back to the other party. It brings joy to the person when someone accepts something out of love from the person giving them the gift.
Right.
Which is much different than someone who just thinks the world owes them everything.
Right. So he said that you see people around, sometimes they give and they're really taking. So a person can be giving a gift, but it's really a bribe because they want to get something further down the road.
Right.
They're not really interested in giving the thing. They're giving the thing because they know they can get something later from that person.
Right.
Or from whatever it is. So that's this metacognition. They realize getting to that core of what's the root, what's the pure reason why I'm doing the actions that I'm doing, why I'm walking where I am, why I'm opening the newspaper or reading the book, whatever one may be doing. Am I thinking about giving, or am I thinking about taking? A person goes to work. So work. So a person can say, well, I'm going to work because I want to get a paycheck. So it's an act of taking. But a person might, and this is the truth, I think with most people, they see their work as an opportunity to be giving to people, and that just happens to be they get paid for doing what they're doing, and they appreciate that with that money they're giving to their family or they're giving to other people. But that's really at the root of business. So that's the second chapter of his business dealings. And he brings the story of two people, Chanoch and the Chavetz Chaim, who lived at different times. Chanoch was one of before the time of the flood. And the Medrash says that Chanoch, when he would sew the shoes, so he was a cobbler. And when he would be sewing shoes, he'd be sewing the name of Hashem into the shoes. So, of course, you can't just put the name of Hashem into put of shoes. That's prohibited. A person going to be stamping around on the name of Hashem. Maybe you put Amalek, right? So you wanted to blot out the name of Amalek. That could make sense, but not the name of Hashem. What does it mean that he put the name of Hashem into the shoes? No, what it means is every stitch that he made, he said, I'm doing this in order to make this wonderful shoes for the customer, that he should be able to have good shoes, to be able to walk properly. His intention was giving. Of course, he was going to get paid for the shoes that he was making, but the idea was, I'm doing this for that person, that whoever gets these shoes should be able to walk on these shoes. And the same thing he says about the Chavetz Chaim. The Chavetz Chaim had a shop, and in his shop he sold things. But he was very careful not to open his shop at hours which would be competition to other stores in the neighborhood, because he wanted to make sure that they could make their parnos. He wasn't taking livelihood away from them. And then when anyone came into the store, he made sure that he gave them much more than they asked for. So a person came to buy a pound of flour back in the day. So he would give them a pound and some. He'd give them more than that to make sure that they were getting a good deal for whatever they got. And eventually, the Chavetz Chaim was too successful. People coming in all the time and buying from him because they knew he had the best products and he gave them the best prices. And so he restricted the hours, so he was only open for a couple of hours a day. But then people would only come during those couple of hours when his store was open. Eventually, he had to close the store. He was too successful. He didn't want to take money away from his competitors. So he closed the store. And there's another story about the Chavetz Chaim, which I think also illustrates this. There are many, many stories about the Chavetz Chaim's quality of giving. But at one time, he had a pair of gloves, a very nice pair of gloves. And one time he was on a train, and the glove fell off and fell out the window. So he immediately took off the other glove and threw it out the window. So somebody asked him, why did you do that? He said, well, whoever's walking on the train track will find a glove. And now he'll find two gloves and they can use them. The idea is constantly thinking on his mind was, what can I do for others?
Right. How can I help out someone else? I think this idea, I thought about this when I was reading that part of the essay, is the idea of livelihood and the freedom, and really what we have to internalize that our livelihood actually does come from Hashem. One of the things I repeat to myself every morning, that my business and my livelihood are not the same thing. Like the effort you put in and the money that comes in are not actually tied to one another. It's an illusion. And so the reason Hashem wants us engaged in the business world is because that is how we can help people. Like Chonak making shoes, we take our work as, how can I really help someone with what I'm doing for a living, instead of thinking of the approach of, I'm doing this so I can make money. Those are two different ways of approaching the world. One's taking, one's giving.
Right, exactly. And the quality of giving is is something which is innate to human, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us in His image. And so Rabbi goes on to say, there's no person, anybody, non-Jew, anybody, there's no one in the world who does not have that innate desire and want to give. Everyone's created in the image of God. And so you find that people want to have children, right? They want to have children, they can have someone to give to. People want to get married, they have someone to give to. People who don't want to have children, and maybe even don't want to get married, want to have a pet, and they invest their money and their love and their kindness to the pet. Or they might buy a car and they love their car, but they want to give. You find people have this desire to give. And it's a very famous idea that Rabbi Dester introduces to us over here, that the root of the word ahava, which is love, is hav, which is to give. So the root of love is giving. And then he asks the question, and that the question is, what comes first? Do you love somebody and therefore you give to them, or do you give to somebody and then you love them? Right? That's a question that people ask. Parents wonder, right? Who loves more? Does the child love the parent more than the parent loves the child? Which way does it go? And he says a beautiful story that he observed when he was a young man during this First World War, that there was a family where the father and the daughter was separated from the mother. And just before the war, the mother went out and a barricade was put over the city, and it was taken by another nation. And she wasn't able to come back to her home for several years. And during that period of time, the father was looking after the child and the mother was away. So Odessa said he noticed that the love after that event, the attachment from the father to the child was much stronger than the attachment of the mother to the child. Because the father had been giving to the child that whole time and the mother had not been there for that experience of giving to her child. And therefore she'd missed out on that. Well, it's interesting, not in the book, but Rabbi Desta himself was separated from his wife and his child during the Second World War, right? His son and his daughter were away from him, and his wife was away from him. They were wife and daughter was in Australia. His son, I think, was in Canada, and he was in England. And his children said after the war, their love was not affected by the distance. It was not impacted, right? They made sure to write to each other, and he was so filled with the love of his children and thinking about them all the time that it didn't impact their relationship. That's what his children said of their relationship with their father. He wasn't in fact impacted by that. And the letters that he wrote to his children are still around and actually available in print. And they're very, very, you see the love and the incredible amount of love that he had. And the way he expressed that on his letters is also, it's wonderful to read, amazing worthwhile readings sometimes. But the point is that love is something that we create through giving. And so a person can never fall out of love. It's just you fell out of giving.
Right. He was separated from his children, but he was still able to give through letters and sending correspondence to them. And you can have fathers that are in the home with their children growing up, but are preoccupied with work all day long and are not in a state of giving to them, but close proximity, and the child doesn't feel love. So it has nothing to do with proximity. It's whether or not you're doing acts of kindness for the other.
Right. Just for us, that can be through acts of giving, which is really great. It can be through many different things. You can wish well for the other person. You can pray for the other person, right? So something to consider, right? You're in shul, right? We come to shul, often people come to the synagogue and there's hundreds of people, or maybe tens of people in the synagogue, and you don't know who they are. You might even feel totally disconnected from everybody else. But praying is a group sport, right? So actually you're with a lot of other people. You can actually daven for the other people in the shul. You can actually daven that their prayers should be answered. You can be thinking about them. That's what's going on over here. That's what's going on. It's a transformation. It's turning ourselves inside out from thinking about ourselves to thinking about another person. Making it an exercise, right? To see other people, to smile at them, to make sure they feel happy, make sure they feel good. And I remember Rabbi Carmel, who wrote this book, we used to say, when you walk in the street, you see another person, that's a Tselem Elokim, that's an image of Hashem, you've got to greet it. You should greet people around you.
Right.
They may not want, they may be busy, but it's a good thing. It's a wonderful thing. You greet them. If you mention their name, it's even better, right? You talk to somebody by their name. People, the sweetest thing a person can hear is their name. And you say their name. Even where maybe a few times a day, you'll see them a few times. Every time you see them, say their name. But that's an act of giving. And that if you're thinking about that, you're actually turning yourself inside out. You're actually changing everything you're doing. And that's how you come to love other people, but through the act of giving. And it doesn't have to be through giving them money. It just could be a greeting, a smile, a caring for another person. Rabbi Desta mentions that if a person smiles at the other person, you get them to show their teeth and smile back. It's as if you've given them milk, right? It's if you've nurtured them because they feel it. They appreciate it.
And I've been on the receiving end of just on a day where things aren't going well, the nice smile, have a great day, makes a big difference. It seems like there's a point in everyone's life where we sort of master this skill, but it gets lost. And he discusses this. It's about when we meet our spouse, that, newlyweds, when you first start dating, the feeling you have for one another, the love. And then over time, I have lots of people have told me this. Why are you getting divorced? We fell out of love. We're just not in love anymore. What changed? And that's what Rob Dessler sort of pinpoints here is, you didn't fall out of love. You fell out of giving to the other person.
Right. And so unfortunately, it can be that people go into a marriage and they're thinking about it's really about what they can get or how they can be efficient together, right? But that's not what it is. A marriage is an opportunity to be able to give to somebody who's on your same level. There's giving to a child, right? So the child needs something. The child doesn't have something. So you're going to give to them. So that's not really the best type of giving. If you think about it, when Adam HaRishon, Adam was in the Garden of Eden, so Hashem said at one certain stage, one point, he says, Lo tov eot Adam levado. It's not good that a man is alone. Let's make for him a helpmate. So if you look there, you'll see that the next thing that happens, you'd expect the next thing to happen was, okay, and God put a man to sleep and took his half of him and made woman. That's not what happens. The next thing that happens is he takes him around our garden and Adam gives a name to each one of the animals. So why? Adam had to realize that you can give. Listen, we're told Adam was able to have children before Chava. That is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created Adam that he could procreate. The Ramban Nachmanides says he was du partzufim. He had two faces. He had two sides to him. He could procreate. He could have a child, but that wouldn't have been a helpmate. That wouldn't have been a partner. Why? Because he would have been giving to somebody who's below him. He could give to all the animals. He went all around. Hashem took him around all the animals. Adam named all the animals, but he saw each one and how each one was not Adam. They were not on his level. They were animals. And so he could give to them, as we find Noah takes all the animals into the ark and provides for all the animals. He could give to everybody, but that's not the same giving, because they're giving to somebody who needs you, who lacks you, who lacks what you have, and you're giving them. But here, Hashem said, no, we're going to have two parts. We're going to take you and make you in half. So as the Gemara tells us, right, God didn't take Chava from Adam's feet, because then Adam would lord over her. God didn't take Chava from Adam's head, because then she would lord over him. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu took it from his middle. Why? Because they are equals. Equal but different. There's the same and different. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu put Adam in a situation where he could give to somebody on his own level, somebody who maybe doesn't need what he's giving, but he can still give to them. And Chava too can give to Adam, maybe not what he needs, but she can give to him just for the sake of giving. And that's a relationship where there can be pure giving. So in that relationship, the Rabbi Dessler points out, and it's very important, and people don't get this, even from reading Rabbi Dessler, marriage is 100% and 100%. Each one is giving 100% to the marriage, not expecting anything in return. Because the moment it becomes 80-20, then it's a taking relationship. There's an element of taking in that relationship. And that's a danger for that relationship. When a person walks into a relationship 100%, I'm giving 100%, that's a marriage that can blossom.
Even in the area of learning Torah, or just learning overall, interesting idea that Rabbi Nagel pointed out to me early on was that the difference between secular wisdom and Torah wisdom is secular wisdom. People go to college, they learn sciences and math and business and finance and all these things because they want to expand themselves and control the world around them. It's acquiring knowledge in order to be more productive at taking. Versus Torah, the goal is, as Rav Dessler's talked about in the previous essays, is the ultimate goal is to Torah humbles us, makes us feel smaller, and that the goal of Torah learning is to do it lishma, to do it for the sake of heaven, right? So Torah wisdom makes us smaller, makes us more humble, makes us prerequisites for giving, and secular wisdom is there to expand us and really sort of lends to taking. However, I think both can be used the way we learn, the way we can go out and acquire knowledge of finance and math and things like that to make a living. But if we do it so we can give to other people, that's in line with what Rob Dessler is talking about.
Yeah. But as you mentioned, right, is this step of ambition, right? So a person wants to learn, go to college, wants to become an accountant, a lawyer, a doctor, whatever it may be. So there's this idea of ambition. And in the world we live, ambition is really held to be a high value, right? A person of high quality, he's an ambitious person. We say, oh, that's a great guy. He's very ambitious. He's got a lot of drive. He's driven. He wants. So it's a little difficult on this next chapter. This is chapter 7 in the book, Giving and Taking. And it's really the I think, in my opinion, it's the most hard-hitting part of this whole treatise. And that is that, and it goes against Western values, because we look at the world as we want to be ambitious. And even a person becomes religious, and even people who are religious, they say, well, I want to be ambitious. I want to learn this. I want to know this. I want to become a rabbi. I want to get smicha. I want to learn shas. These people have lofty visions and lofty ambitions and lose themselves. They can lose themselves, because what it becomes is I'm missing I'm missing this, so I want it. Now, relates back to chapter number 1, to our first podcast, second podcast, right? The first chapter of this book, which is with the moment you feel you're not everything, you're not complete, now you become a taker. Because if you're not complete, you've got to get something to become complete. So then you're a taker. You've got to take. You can't say, oh, well, no, it's okay. I'm going to receive it, but I need it. You better get it to me. I need it. Once you're living with needs, you're living in the world of taking. And it can happen to anybody. And a person can slip off. I like to put it in the terms, you can slip off the bike at any moment. You can slip from being a giver to being a taker from less than a second, in a millisecond. Because all of a sudden it becomes about what I need. No, I'm lacking this. I need this. So then that's an act of taking. Well, I need it I want to help other people in the future. Yeah, fine, but it's an act of taking right now. Don't get me wrong. This is very difficult, and I hope when you're listening to this, whoever's listening to this is thinking, well, how am I going to do this? We'll get you through there. The next chapter is going to help you. But at the moment, this is very confronting. The confrontation is, if you're not whole and complete right now, then you're going to be a taker. So what you're saying, I'm whole and complete. I'm also going to be so arrogant to say I'm whole and complete. Yeah, you're whole and complete. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a perfect world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a happy world, where everything that's here and you need is right here. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's got your back. You've got everything you need right now. And the only thing which is taking you away from that is kinna, kavod, v'taiva, right? Is jealousy, the desire for respect and for honor and approval and desires. That's the only thing that's taking you out. You're whole, perfect, and complete right now, the way you are right now. But then where can I grow? You can grow into the next second, but right now, you're whole, perfect, and complete. And part of your being whole, perfect, and complete is that you appreciate knowledge, or you appreciate Torah, and you want to learn. That's where you are right now. I'm just going to say a story which illustrates this. It happened to the photographer of the wedding of my son, of my son-in-law, my daughter and son-in-law. And the photographer one time wanted to take a photograph of the great Rabbi Yashiv, who passed away a few years ago, but he was a great Torah scholar. So the family told me, yeah, you could go. If you take your camera and go to his house at 4 a.m. He gets up very early and he's learning. You can take photographs from outside because there's a window there, and you can take photographs and you won't disturb him. It'll be fine. So that's what he did. He got up very early and he went to the house and he saw Rabbi Yashiv sitting down in the early morning, sitting down with his Gemara and learning the sweet Torah at 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. It's dark outside. And he's taking these photographs. And while he's taking these photographs, he's overcome with the feeling that, wow, I wish I could learn like this man is sitting down and learning and just simply learning the sweetness of the Torah. And he started to cry. And he slipped or fell. Rabbi Yashiv looked out and saw him crying. And he said, come in. He said, what's the matter? So he said, I'm crying because I never could learn like you're learning. You're learning so beautifully. I could never learn that way. It never really happened to me in yeshiva, and I wish I could learn that way. So Rabbi Yashiv says, your wish that you could learn that way is better than my Torah. Because you have a complete desire and love of Torah. You just want Torah right now because you love it. So that's even greater than I. Where you want to be is where you are. Where you want, if you love Torah, that's where you are right now. So yes, you're whole, perfect, and complete. So this whole idea of ambition, I got to get this, I get that, is saying, well, I'm lacking. You're not lacking. You're whole, perfect, and complete. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's got you, and you're in the right place. That's how we look at ambition.
To make sure I understand, he was saying that your feeling of lack of Torah is what makes you whole?
Well, that depends, right? So if a person who has a love of Torah and wants Torah, they're not lacking Torah, they just want it. The guy who says, no, I don't have it. I need to get Shas. I need to finish Shas. Don't disturb me now. I'm learning Torah because I need to learn Shas. You're missing the boat. And there is such a thing, and the Gemara talks about it, and the Bali Musa talk about it, and Rabbi Desta talks about it over here, which is learning Lakanta, learning for yourself. And that's what it says. A person can get Gan Eden and he's not going to enjoy it because he'll go in the world to come and he'll be so jealous of all the other rabbis who are around him who have learned much more than him. because it wasn't learning for the right reason. So it's a high level. I mean, a person can't expect themselves to get there immediately, but sometimes you can. The point is, it's not about where you're going to get to. It's about who you are.
I'm trying to reconcile that with davening and making requests to Hashem, but I do sort of come back to the Berkeo Vos, that who is wealthy one who is satisfied with his lot, or Berkos Zona. I've read that to eat and be satiated doesn't mean to have an overindulgence in food. It's to be satiated with what you have in life. That's what we're sort of praying for, is to not have these, I guess, uncontrollable desires and wants.
Right. So this is, again, a very, very important concept that doesn't speak about directly over here, but it speaks in another section where he talks about the continuation of this, which is in the next volume, which is that you find Yaakov and Esav, right? They meet up, and Yaakov wants to give Esav a gift, and Esav says, "Don't give. I've got a lot. I've got plenty. I have plenty. Yesh li rav. I've got a lot." And Yaakov said, "No, take it. Yesh li kol. I have everything." So, a person might say, "I've got a lot. I've got plenty. But they'll never be satisfied, because you can't have everything. You're going to need more, right? But then the other person says, "Yesh li kol. I've got everything I need. That's it. I don't need any more." That's Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu is the Yesh li kol. But it doesn't mean I can't work to expand myself and become greater and become more and larger and give more. But Yesh li kol. You see Avram Avinu, right? Avram Avinu has these guests, and he gives them what he gives. He gives each guest, each shecht, a different lamb for each guest, so he can give each one the center part of the tongue, which is the most soft part of all the meat of the animal. But do you think he ate? That's how he ate? No, yeah. Avram Avinu ate a small meal himself, but when he's giving for his guests, he gave them the best. That's the difference of Yesh li kol and Yesh li rav. I've got a lot, and I've got everything. We like to live in our world that we have everything. I've got everything I need.
Right. And it seems like the idea is to channel the ambition from taking to giving to where, yes, we should be ambitious, but like you said, to expand ourselves in the way of giving to others.
Right. So there's a beautiful story which I don't want to miss out over here. Rabbi Dessler points out that one time he was looking at it. It's a marshal for the whole of life, right? One time he was walking in the northern areas, and there was in an area of snow, and he saw this pack of wolves. And off in the distance, there was a carcass. So the wolves who all run to get the carcass, they're all hungry. They will to jumping on the carcass to eat this animal, eat the meat. And but they're fighting with each other to get the meat. So each fighting, until finally one of the wolves manages to pick up the carcass, to fight off all the other animals, and pick up this carcass and walk away with it so he can eat it somewhere else. And the other animals all tired and all cut and bruised. And even the one who's got the meat is walking away. There's a trail of blood he leaves in the snow because he's himself wounded from all the fighting and everything. So who has the meat? The one wolf has got the meat, and he's blemished and he's got it only after fighting the other animals. He's cut and bruised and he's bleeding, and he gets the pleasure of the meat. The others, they're fighting, they've been fighting, they're cut and bruised, and they don't get anything. And they're just lying in the snow with nothing. He says that's the paradigm of taking. When everyone's taking, no one wins. There isn't a winner, because everyone's taking. You're just not being human. You're just not being godly. You're missing the whole thing. So that's how he ends this chapter 7. There is a long author's note over here, which we're not going to go into, but it does deserve time. But then just without leaving, it would be a pity to leave it on this. He does say in the chapter 8 that there is good ambition. Good ambition is when ambition is for Torah, and when ambition is to give, and wants to find a possibility where I can be greater and larger. How can I give more? How can I help more? Now, you have to be careful, and he points this out, because if I see somebody who doesn't have, and I feel lacking because they don't have, I'm slipping into taking again, because I'm just an extension of their not having, and I want to take. But he says that's a shalol lishma, which can bo lishma. That's for the wrong reason. It can come for the right reason, because it's not me, it's for that person. I want to be able to help that person. So just get it, that I'm taking again. I need to make sure he gets, because he's lacking, and I don't want that he should be lacking. And it's true, his lacking is my ruchnius, that's true, but it's still a shalol lishma at a certain level, because it's based on lack. And when you're based on lack, it means it's a need. And once it's a need, it's a take. So but you can get that. That's okay. He says that's okay. Work through that. That person needs something. Okay, let me get it to them. Let me fulfill what they need. And that's a way to work on the quality of giving. We should just end up, if that's okay. The way to acquire love of somebody else and the way to acquire the quality of giving is to give. Right. The more you give, the more you're going to want to give more. Right, that's the nature of goodness. When you do good, you actually feel it, you connect with it, and you're just going to want to do more good. And that's the way to cultivate goodness and giving. There are people who say, Rabbi Elia Lapian, who also learned in Kelm, who says this, that a person should make an effort every day to do one act of pure giving. Just give for the sake of giving, and then just give and then just become accustomed to that every single day. So there was a cute story which is told about Sarah Schneera, who also had this idea. And one day she felt she'd been teaching and she'd been doing all sorts of things throughout the day. She'd been giving many times. So then it came the evening, but she felt she hadn't really done a selfless act of giving. So she couldn't go to sleep. So the other girl said, "What's the matter? She said, "I can't go to sleep. I haven't done a selfless act of giving. I've got to find something to do. I can't go to sleep." So one of the girls said to her, this is a seminary, the girl said to her, "When you go to sleep, that's itself a giving, because you'll be able to give so much better tomorrow." That there is truth in that, right? So there's a point at which you're just giving to yourself in order to be able to give to others, because you are a machine to give others. You're a mechanism, for a pipe for God to give to the rest of the world, to give to others. So when you come to that level, so then going to sleep is itself an act of giving.
Beautiful. It's this whole idea of being what the forefathers brought in the world, being a chariot, a Merkava, is Hashem just wants to give. And how does he give? Well, through us. He's relying on us to be an extension to him in this world to fulfill his will, which is to give to others, which is a very incredible, beautiful idea. So simple, but yet gets so complex, I guess, because we got the calling from the Yetzer Hara and the body and everything else that's wanting to pull us into a state of taking and selfishness. But it sounds like what he's saying is the way to acquire it is just through constant training, right, building the habit.
So he does address that in that 8th chapter. He says, "B'chol levavecha," with all your heart, with your Yetzer Hara and your Yetzer Tov. That is, there is a place for your Yetzer Hara here, for you to say, "It bothers me that guy doesn't have. So I want that he should have." Right? It's a want, right? It's a lacking. I'm lacking that he's lacking. But that's okay, because through that you can come to give.
Amazing. And this will continue next week. Thank you, Rabbi.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed the episode and found it meaningful, please take a moment to rate, review, and share the podcast.